The more I explore myself and other women through this self-expression work, the more I recognize that we sometimes misuse forms of potentially empowering mindsets to give our hurt a place to land instead of a place to heal. Lately, I've been summoned by the energies of feminism and the Black Power movement as courses of study. I've been paying attention to some of the women and men who have lived and died in the energy of radical self-expression, and in that focused attention, I have come to recognize a variety of things and patterns. One thing I see is that there's a gross misconception, a negative connotation even, that sits alongside terms like feminist and radical, and any of the movements that might be interpreted as radical in any way. The more present I become in my own life, the more I identify with the term radical. But what has been missing for me was a definition of the term, so that I could solidify what radical means to me and how I might go about living it. I'm sharing this with you to make you aware of your own responsibility to define your radical self, and to explore whether that self has been muted or stifled in any way because of your perception of the term radical. Moreover, I share this to encourage you to feel around in your psyche and assess whether any hurt places need healing, or whether they healed the wrong way and need to be broken again so that they can be reset and given the chance to properly heal. If you subscribe to my blog, have read any of my books, or are connected to me online or in person, then the term radical self-expression might not be new to you. Though the term may be familiar through our interactions, the definition may not. It wasn't familiar to me either, which is why I took the time to create one. I'd never heard the term prior to seeing it written in my journal one day, and I stopped when I wrote it, because the feeling that came from seeing the three words together overwhelmed me with a sense of purpose and a needling to explore it even more. I put a Google alert on the term and never got one single hit until earlier this year when Burning Man happened in Nevada. I thought, great, here's where I'll get a definition and connect with other people who feel the term as much as I do. That didn't happen. The definition I found was basically that each person had to define it for themselves. And so, I reconfirmed what I had suspected. I needed to define it myself, recognize it in my own life, and then share it so that people who follow my work can make space to recognize and apply it to theirs. So, I started flirting openly with those three words. Radical self-expression and I felt our way through each other's knowings, and I started using it more on my blog, on my primary website, and even as a hashtag on Instagram. It also started using me, hence the continued hankering to see and study other women and men who seem to embody its energy. What I found is that those women and men made a choice to do something with whatever hurt them, instead of letting it consume them in a useless nothingness of rants and riots. Certainly, they ranted, some even rioted, and often they wrote. But they always chose at some point to focus those emotions into a space of inspired action, and they made the world far more aware, if not better, by honoring that choice. Now, about you and me, where do we place our hurt? Sometimes hurt is the only passage to power. Other times, it is both the catalyst and the curator of itself. Either way, it's a powerful emotion, and if you allow it to do its work, hurt will walk you through pain, drag out vulnerability, dish out doubt, sling raw emotion, and then carry you, bruised and perhaps broken, to a critical crossroads. One road leads to empowerment, a better understanding of unique abilities to use your experiences to heal yourself and affect change in your environment. The other road leads to the elaborate design of a permanent crutch and a place to remain close to your pain. Both roads can lead to a form of healing, as almost all hurt eventually heals. But where you choose to put your focus and your actions determines whether you will forever walk with that impairing limp, a sign of malunion, a healing that healed wrong, or whether you end up stronger and smarter as a result of that part of you that broke. We sometimes need to validate our anger and our frustrations, and I know this is not only natural, but an important part of the healing process. All feelings are to be explored, but not all of them need to be embraced. Much like a pregnancy or the construction of a new house, it is important to look at and feel the entire process, even the parts that may not have a place in the end result. And ultimately, once that baby is born or once that house is built, you don't keep operating like a pregnant woman, and you don't keep hammering away at the finished house. To do that is to hamper the growth, or worse, to damage what took time, effort, and energy to birth or build. The healing journey always includes the slowing down, the release, or even the death of something, so that something else can use it to repair itself and live. But many of us attempt, perhaps subconsciously, or if only to avoid the related feelings, to skip those slow down, release, maybe die steps in that journey. Let's take the physical healing journey of a broken bone, for example, so you can see what our bodies intuitively do, and then look at the parallel between that and our tendency to seek a place to hold our hurt. If you were to break your leg tomorrow, shortly after the break occurs, the blood vessels around the injured area constrict to stop any further bleeding. A few hours after that, the blood cells form a blood clot known as a hematoma. Then, all of the cells within the blood clot degenerate and die. Additionally, some of the cells outside of the blood clot, but near to the injured site, also degenerate and die. That is our body's biological and intuitive process. It gets no more organic than that. Our emotional pain, our hurt, follows a similar path too. We get our hearts broken, either in a romantic relationship, a friendship, or by an injustice inflicted upon someone with whom we identify in some way. In that hurt space, we feel our feelings, we begin to process those feelings, and then we get to that crossroads. That crossroads offers us the opportunity to utilize what we have experienced instead of just being dragged around by its effects and jaded by its sting. In her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, which I consider required reading for anyone, woman or man, compelled by radical self-expression, PhD author and psychoanalyst Clarissa Pinkola Estes talks about the too good mother, and I find it the perfect fit to accent my point herein. Among wolves, when a wolf mother nurses her pups, she and they spend much time lazing about. Everyone slumps over everyone in a great puppy pile. However, when the wolf mother finally trains her pups to hunt and forage, she shows them her teeth more often than not. She snaps and demands they keep up. She shoves them down if they don't do what she requires. Can you see the correlation between the wolf pups and your own hurt? At some point, you must be willing to be that fierce mother to the hurt birthed from your experience. Your hurt is valid, your pain is relevant, and your gripes are warranted. All of those were important, if not vital, parts of what got you to this point. You will need time to process all of it and to be with it so the blood vessels can form that hematoma and then die. And when they die, they can begin the reparative and remodeling phases, which are the last two vital steps our bodies take to repair broken bones. If you are to heal, you have to be willing to let your puppies, your hurt, get the benefit of your willingness to woman up, raise your head in your vibration, and mold the hurt into something you can actually use. Are you compensating for any breaks? Are you nurturing your hurt spaces so vigilantly and so often that even when the break heals, you're still left with the limp that will tell the story both to you and to anyone else who experiences you? Do you beat the drum of that broken leg not so it can heal, but so you can hear your voice speak in protest about whatever caused that break to begin with? That, I believe, is where the levels of judgment and bludgeoning people over the heads with our feelings stem from. If I call myself a feminist, a believer in the power and necessity of Black unity, a radical self-expressionist, a writer, a believer in free-range learning, or whatever, I can choose to live those beliefs in one of two ways. I can judge women, which I have done. I can be suspicious of all men, which I have been. I can worry that my people will never claim their own power, which I have done. I can fear that my daughters will become victims of sexism and racism, which I have done. I can curse public schools and privatized systems, which I have done. Or I can live in the space of all those words and energies with which I connect deeply, and use what I believe and what I love to educate and hopefully motivate others to consider those options as well. To be clear, I am not a blind optimist, nor am I a believer in nonviolence as the key to world peace. I believe that there is a place for the fight, and I believe that we cannot pray or love our way into the hearts of people who see us as less than them. I recognize that freedom, historically, has been taken by force, not given because someone had a change of heart. So I'm not saying that there's no place for your anger. Anger can sometimes give us the charge we need to be frustrated and fed up enough to finally ditch fear for action. Obviously, though, that same anger, if not faced with a degree of humanity and even rationale, will just perpetuate more of the same hate and fear that caused the hurt or injustice that upset my peace to begin with. This means I can either decide that all men are dogs because I saw or experienced that in my own life, or I can vigilantly seek out examples of good love and bask in that as much as I can while I heal myself, make different choices, and find my way to the type of love I want. I can either decide that all white people are the devil incarnate and want to hurt me and mine, or I can look at each person as a human being, speak up for and as myself without the expectation or acceptance of condescension, and live, love, and purchase in support of my own community, so that me and mine are less dependent on any other race's decision to be fair and or kind, and more focused on building that fairness with my own actions, assertions, and money. I can either decide that no man will ever understand, much less value, the feminist movement and operate in that angry, expect to be disrespected space, or I can carry myself as a woman to be respected, define my worth by my own standards, honor my body in ways that make sense for me, and be willing to educate, agitate, or ignore any male or female who hasn't yet recognized or perpetuates both the covert and overt attempts to keep treating women like chattel or children. I can either overwhelm myself with PTA board meetings, drive myself across town to find extracurricular activities that offer my daughters opportunities to explore themselves, their interests, and their learning styles in ways more commensurate with the types of adults I feel the world needs. Or I can unplug my daughters and give them both the space and the structure to fall in love with learning, to actively seek themselves in a variety of art forms, and to learn to listen to their intuition and conjure up inspiration in everyday tasks through unschooling. In all of those cases, I can choose to let the experience help me to heal my environment and myself, or I can beat the angry drum and raise my voice just because I can. Today, I'm currently immersed in the practice of using forms of potentially empowering mindsets as healing tools to place my experiences and to grow from. In doing so, I'm recovering from my former practice of using words like radical and feminist to give my pain and hurt a place to land. I do not claim to be an expert or even a well-studied proponent of feminism or the Black Power movement. I do know, though, that both movements are grossly misunderstood and plastered with the labels of anger and hate-based, when in fact they are about empowerment, knowledge of self, and positive change through dialogue, education, and the willingness to stand up for oneself. They are both about coming out of hiding, in a sense, hiding from the realities of our world today and hiding behind hope and prayers, when neither of those things will work without somebody's willingness to stand up, speak out, and do something about what they and people like them continue to experience. As far as hurt goes, I certainly do not claim to know the depths of each person's pain. I only know that in my own experiences with deep pain, that at first seems to have no chance of healing, that I feel empowered and in some cases healed when I channel my voice. And not just channel my voice so that it can be heard, but so that it can be strategically aimed as a series of blow darts, spears, guns, words, gazes, and torches that set good vibes in motion, minds into seeking mode, and raise arguments that demand to be addressed. That is how I heal. I know that from learning to be present with my emotions and allowing myself to feel all that I feel, but then being responsible enough to ask my God, my ancestors, and my living resources to guide me out of anger and pain and onto the road of healing and positive impact, that I can truly heal myself and my environment.